This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free 800-610-7035. Email xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and you can listen to the X-Zone 724-365 at www.xzoneradiotv.com. The X-Zone Christmas store is wide open, www.xzonexmas.com, and we've done something a little special this year. If you go to the right of the page, it says Santa Claus will send a letter. Basically what will happen is you send an email to Santa at xzonexmas.com telling him the name of the child and an address or an email address that you'd like them to receive an email or letter from Santa, and we'll be taking care of that for you. Every child should have the opportunity of getting an email or a letter from Santa Claus. And that's one of the fondest memories I have of my childhood, was that you knew that in between the first and second week of December, if you were a real good little boy, you'd get that letter from Santa. And, you know, my mom made sure that we always got our letter, and it was always something that we looked forward to ever so much. Mind you, I don't know why he stopped when I was 23, but something must have happened. So that's at xzonexmas.com. Exonation, this hour we're going to be talking, amongst other things, about the hacking that has been going on in the United States that has been traced back to China. My guest this hour is the one and only Corey K., www.xzonetechzone.com. And Corey, welcome back to the X-Zone, my friend, and belated happy birthday to you, and a belated happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it.
So what's the story behind the story when it comes to the Chinese hackers, my friend?
Well, I will tell you a quick story that will help make sense of this.
Okay.
There was a related story this week about a phishing scam on Wall Street. And what phishing is when a hacker attempts to grab, basically gain personal information against a target by sending them an email, and they're basically requesting information. And what these hackers did is they actually went after the big whales, which is why this practice is called whaling. And they were trying to target big Wall Street C-level executives because they're the ones with the money, and they had a lot of potential financial gain by targeting those hosts. And more specifically, they used a tactic called spear phishing. So it sounds like we're talking about this big ocean expedition here, but these are actual terms that are used in the security field. But these hackers scammed some big Wall Street C-level executives by sending these spear phishing emails. And as it turns out, the Chinese hackers are using the exact same tactics.
Wow. Isn't there some way that these guys can actually be tracked and caught? And what would happen if the United States government actually was able to say beyond a shadow of a doubt that, hey, this hacker was this hack was tracked back to China? Is there anything that can be done legally Or is it because it's outside of the jurisdiction of the United States that these people are allowed to get away with it?
That is the tricky part, and there are actually critics that are coming forth, and they're saying that we can't prosecute these hackers because we would be applying U.S. law to international territory. But I will tell you this, and this is good news. There were specific hackers arrested, and they were People's Liberation Army members. So wow. That's not an easy thing to do. And the reason that they were able to do it is some of the servers that they were using were based in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. So because the servers were in the U.S., U.S. law applied.
That's right. That's what they're going to argue, and we'll see if they're successful. The hackers specifically, they had rented a server, and they used the domain hugesoft.org. And just to give you an idea of how many years this is going back to, this HugeSoft domain has been implicated in major attacks going back at least to 2009. HugeSoft servers were used to target Coca-Cola in 2009. They used it to target Westinghouse, U.S. Steel, and Alcoa from 2010 to 2012. And in 2012 also, there was a Canadian company. It was Telvent Canada Limited, and they're a maker of industrial control systems to monitor oil and gas pipelines, and they've been hacked by this same group.
Right. Corey, you and I have to take our first 2-minute commercial break. Stand by, old friend. Exxon Nation, Corey K is our guest, www.exxontechzone.com, and Corey and I will be back after this short break. Don't go away.
Nita Hickok is an expert in exorcisms, psychic warfare, soul healing, angelology, soul retrieval, demonology, energy healing, long-distance healing, astral healing, and much more. Nita is an interfaith minister because she believes all gods and goddesses are valid and that they are part of one divine force that is incomprehensible to us who are incarnated upon this earth. Nita has been doing astral healing, distant healing, spirit release, exorcism, house cleansing and blessings, soul restoring and revival, psychic vampire removal and curse removal, and much more for over 40 years. For more information or to contact Nita Hickok, visit her website at www.astralhealer.com. That's www.astralhealer.com.
Do you think you have energy problems in your home? Do you feel better when you're away than when you're home? Joey Korn is a global leader in the world of dowsing who specializes in personal energy clearing and space clearing. He can help you create an ideal energy environment in your home no matter where you live in the world. Learn about his remote spiritual house cleaning services and much more at www.dowsers.com. You can get Joey's book, Dowsing, A Path to Enlightenment, as well as other dowsing books and tools, Kabbalah books, and Walter Russell books. Joey's work is really amazing. Go to dowsers.com right now. That's DOWSERS.com, or call 1-877-DOWSING. That's 1-877-369-7464. Welcome back, everyone. Corey K is our special guest, www.exxontechzone.com. All right, Corey, this fishing expedition, or this fishing hacking, can you better give us a better idea what it's all about?
Oh, definitely. There's two ways, at least two ways to go about a phishing attack. One is to cast a broad net and go after as many targets as possible. And for something like that, you can use a programming language like Visual Basic, Python, or any number of other languages, and you can try to send as many emails as possible to as many email addresses as possible. And you would target the big ones like at yahoo.com, at gmail.com, where you would get a lot of users. So that's one strategy. But in these more recent attacks that are a little more scary, they use something called spear phishing. And with spear phishing, instead of casting that broad net, you go after a very select group of targets, and especially a group of people from a specific company, and you target them specifically. And so spear phishing is very targeted. Now, with the Wall Street phishing scam, they were specifically trying to get information about mergers and acquisitions so they could later basically use that inside information to get financial gains from the stock market. And what they did is they sent an email to C-level executives and others who worked at a bank, and they used educated guesses and also information that they could gather just by calling these banks and trying to fish for information that way. But they would send an email that was a generic but believable dialogue about a possible merger and acquisition, and they would say something in the email like, hey, doesn't Bob from the M&A team, doesn't he just drive you crazy? And since all of these companies have someone named Bob, the person receiving the email, they would respond, and slowly but surely through a process we've talked about before called social engineering, they were able to manipulate people into revealing that sensitive data.
Wow. So basically, there's a lot of psychology that's put into this as well. Not only is there the actual programming, the engineering, but personal psychology in order to also fish to get that information out of the person that you're communicating with.
That's right. And one thing that's encouraging is more and more companies are becoming aware of social engineering. They're training their employees to recognize it. And even in my own workplace, there were posters that went up in the last couple of months that said, beware of social engineering. These are the signs. And what people try to do in different places that I've worked at recently is they'll try to get small details like zip codes, phone numbers, sometimes even passwords from protected accounts. And usually the way it works is they'll call somebody up, they'll get somebody like me, and they'll use some publicly available information like, oh, I have model X, Y, and Z of this product, and I need to change some of my account information. And at first, the employee following their training will be like, well, no, I can't give that out. But they'll make up some believable story like, oh, I have 1 million passwords. I can't remember the one for this. Can you give me a hint?
Wow.
And that person will give them a hint like it's a color. That narrows it down. And basically through this back and forth process, they're manipulating the person on the phone, and eventually, if they keep hammering away, they can succeed in some cases.
So there must be something that can be done, Corey. For, like we're so highly advanced technologically, how come we can't come up with a system that is fail-safe? That you just can't do hacking anymore. There has to be something.
Well, it's really interesting. They are coming up with new encryption methods. The new Apple iPhone 6s have this new encryption method, and apparently it's so good that the NSA, the FBI, they're demanding that a backdoor be put in because they haven't figured out how to crack it yet, and they're thinking it could take them 30 or 40 years to crack it. So there are stronger encryption methods out there. We mentioned before better training. The training is getting so good that somebody like me would never give out personal information on this account. Now, another safeguard, which I foresee coming down the pipeline, when somebody calls in, they may have to have some sort of temporary token just for that phone call. Maybe it's a 3 or 4 digit number. And the only tricky part is making that number available to all people, because I can also see circumstances where maybe somebody has an older phone, something like that, where they don't have access to that system. But I think we're going to find a way.
Do you think the FBI and the National Security Agency should have access through a back door?
I think that there should be a well-defined process where they can request a warrant, and you know, the companies would respond to that warrant. Those details still need to be worked out, but it could be. I would have to say, if this administration doesn't prohibit the National Security Administration and FBI from having access to that information, I don't foresee a future administration overturning that. I think people at high levels of U.S. government, they want that back door to be available. So I think it's going to happen, honestly.
All right, Exo Nation, the one and only Corey K is my special guest. Always great talking to you, Corey. Speaking about social networks, the social network that we saw being used in Egypt during the crisis a couple of years ago is actually being used today with this entire thing about the Michael Brown case. What's your take on that?
Well, people are realizing that they can use social media accounts to communicate with each other, that they can unite activists across a broad geographical area, and they can at least whip up interest in an issue. And by whipping up that interest, they can also attract the attention of the media, which may cover the story more broadly. I think on the Michael Brown, as far as the Michael Brown incident goes, there have been thousands of stories published, all from slightly different angles. And I think quotes from social media have played a prominent role in these articles. So we are seeing social media being used in social change movements. The only limitation that I can really see is it makes it so easy to communicate with people far and wide that it doesn't always attract the people who would, I guess, go out into the street and organize neighborhood by neighborhood. You have more, I don't want to say free riders. It's that term seems so pejorative to me, but you can attract the activists as well as the lazy all in one swoop.
Yeah. Were there any protests in your neck of the woods with reference to the Michael Brown case?
Surprisingly not, that I know of, and that could just be a failure of local media coverage here. There were threats being made, if you can call it that. Some organizations in a nearby city, they were saying that if there was not a conviction, there would be riots or protests in a nearby city, and I half expected that. That did not materialize, and Florida's just a hard place to organize in that sense, because you have so many transplants from so many areas, very few people that were actually born here originally, and so there's not that rooted sense of community that you might have in areas like St. Louis. So.
Right. What was the popular consensus down in your area concerning the Michael Brown case?
It was all over the board. It's a very divisive issue. We weren't allowed to talk about it at work, and some people who broke that protocol and started to talk about it, we had to squash it pretty fast because the arguments got really heated.
It was quite a thing. The thing I couldn't understand is that the people wanted justice. The public wanted justice. They were screaming for justice. When justice was served, because it didn't serve their cause, they started protesting. I don't understand it. You just can't. If you want justice, justice was served. It was followed to the letter of the law. The guy was found innocent, or he wasn't indicted by the grand jury. The grand jury made their decision based on forensic evidence, as well as first-hand testimony. I don't understand it. I really don't.
It's, on one hand, I think it's a shortcoming in the educational system.
Right.
Basically, you can go all the way through high school now and not learn anything about the legal foundation in America or the West in general. It's something that isn't taught anymore. And I don't know if everyone today can appreciate really what transpired over the last few centuries, how we went from in the West, a society that was not, I'm not going to say not organized by law, but it was organized on one set of principles, and it became organized under a set of constitutionally agreed upon principles. And what we're seeing in the Ferguson case, something more like mob rule, but we'll get into that later.
All right, my friend, please stand by. Exxon Nation. Corey K is our special guest. www.exxontechzone.com is his website. And Corey and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. What if someone told you you could live to be 120? Would you believe him? What if he told you the Bible guaranteed it? All you needed to do was follow his rules and buy his products. Would you do it? What if you invested 20 years of your life in him? What if he tested his substances on your child? What if your child became brain damaged as a result? Meet Dr. Tyler Belknap, a fast-talking Texas admin turned health guru. At the helm of a vast health food and supplement empire, he has established himself as the authority on nutrition and longevity. But what his followers don't know is that his products are laced with bizarre psychoactive substances from genetically modified plants developed in his very own secret lab. No wonder his customers can't stop using them. Tyler Belknap will stop at nothing to keep his edge in the market, even if it means experimenting on children. Chasing 120, a story of food, faith, fraud, and the pursuit of longevity, a novel from the pen of political cartoonist Monty Wolverton, is an easy and entertaining read full of rich characters and intrigue. It hits home in a world filled with all kind of hucksterism and offers a glimpse of what can happen when GMO technology falls into the wrong hands. Chasing 120 by Monty Wolverton. Get your copy today at www.ptm.org/120 or on Amazon.com. The ability to access the knowledge of the universe is much easier for us to access than we may believe. Brad Johnson, conscious matrix communicator, is one of these unique individuals who is able to access a strong connection to the universal mind. Through his connection, Brad has assisted thousands of clients from all over the world through natural intuitive assistance. The intuitive information received is vast, covering a wide range of subjects. Brad's innate ability includes being able to access one's own universal matrix to help them realize their potential to create a life of profound greatness. One-on-one private sessions with Brad Johnson are available to anyone from around the world. Brad is also a proficiently trained psychic, Akashic Records reader, an online spiritual teacher, founder of his own unique and powerful healing system, Body Regeneration Healing, as well as a professional conscious channeler in communication with his own higher self-consciousness known as Adronis. For more information or to book a service appointment with Brad Johnson, visit his website at www.consciousmatrix.com. That's www.consciousmatrix.com.
This is Elizabeth Joyce with Stargazing the week of December 1st through December 7th for the X-Zone. December will be a positive month for most of us, although there still can be some challenges. Overall, you will find a rise in your luck as we move away from watery Scorpio's influence into fiery Sagittarius energies. You will feel a sense of optimism and good dynamics with whatever is happening in your life. It's been a long time, since 2011, since this wave of positive energy has been present. This week is filled with planets in fire and air, which means the emphasis is on the head and not the heart. December 1st is an upbeat day, full of light, as the sun is in Sagittarius and the moon is in Aries. This aspect sets the foundation for the power-based shift of Mars on Thursday, when it moves out of Capricorn and into Aquarius. Because Aquarius believes in open sources of information and a new technology that takes place through the efforts of many, all modes of communication, including social networking and Cyber Monday, are energized and electrified. On Saturday, December 6th, the Gemini full moon brings us to the emotional high tide for December. Like any full moon, this one reminds us to finish what we've started and find resolution to relationship issues or anything else that's hanging in the balance. This Gemini full moon connects with Mars and Aquarius because it makes two positive connections to Uranus and Aries. Uranus rises and trines the sun in sextiles the moon, increasing the likelihood of coming up with cutting-edge technologies and the mindset that will make information more transparent and available to everyone. It also brings secrets into the light, both worldwide and personally. Because next week brings the Pluto-Uranus square, the 6-1, a latent energy or frustration might be building up within you despite the good events that are happening around you, and this might end up making you act in a different manner instead of your normal reactions. This could be detrimental to the relationships both professionally and in your home and with family matters. Do not allow this frustration and silent anger to build up. Meditate and work on it. Try to talk things over with people and reason things out rather than carrying grudges. Be careful from now until New Year's Day, as health issues could become chronic if you are not careful. Don't worry or be stressed out about your health unnecessarily. Just take your nutrients, be careful about what you eat, and of course, how much you drink. You will be grateful and pleased at how people in authority support you this month. Allow yourself to be positive and feel creative and other satisfaction as you approach the holidays.
And for more information or for a one-on-one consultation with Elizabeth Joyce, visit her website at www.new-vision.com. That's www.new-vision.com. Corey K is my special guest, XZoneTechZone.com. Hey, Corey, welcome back, my friend. Always great talking to you.
Oh, yeah. Always great talking to you, Rob.
Thanks, pal. It's funny that over the last week, ever since the riots happened in Ferguson, we don't hear anything more about ISIS, or it's not as talked about as it used to be. We don't hear about the immigration kerfuffle that's going on in the States. It seems as if everything is being focused on Ferguson and the protests that are going throughout the United States, and some protests up here in Canada as well. I often wonder if this is a diversion, and what are we missing that they're doing? It's like, it's like a magician, sleight of hand.
Well, I'll go a little bit deeper into this. This is such a complex issue, and it's so divisive that I don't think that we can even summarize it. I started to make a distinction earlier between a solid democratic constitutional legal foundation and mob rule. And I'm going to, I wasn't originally going to do this, but I'm going to give out some personal details that I've never mentioned before. Once upon a time, I was involved with an organization, and they had been around since the early 70s when the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement were still around, but starting to wane, but definitely still in that era. And there was this idea of people's democracy. It was a Maoist idea,
Right.
and it sounds really good on paper. The idea is that the people, or the proletariat in this case, they would have a say in the legal system, and they could help influence outcomes. But the problem that I saw in the street, and they saw it in China too, but we didn't learn about it for a few decades. It was almost a glorified form of mob rule in a lot of cases. And the more I looked at it, the more I saw it in practice, the more I thought, we can't have a legal system based on this foundation, because the basically the whims of the mob would decide the vote, and evidence would go under the table, and there's no way to reverse the ruling in a lot of cases. You hear of cases all the time where somebody who was innocent, or at least exonerated later by DNA evidence that wasn't available at the time. Sometimes, people do get imprisoned unjustly for years, but there is a process in place for reversing it, however imperfect. Now, with the Ferguson situation, I hate to make it as simple as it's mob justice versus constitutional law, although there's definitely some truth to that. But the fact that it's such a divisive issue does point to the fact that maybe we do collectively need to rethink our societal foundations, rethink our legal system, rethink our economic system. And this is something that can happen. But we'll see. Nobody knows where that's going to go.
Everything has to be updated. As society grows, changes have to be made. For example, with gun control, the Founding Fathers didn't realize that come the year 2010, 2012, that an AK-47 would be accessible because of the power of the Constitution.
Exactly.
So, and another example is religion. Religion has not kept up with the times, and this is why so many people, in my opinion, are leaving the church.
Yes.
It's just like the educational system. Sometimes I wonder if they're progressing along.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. It took me a long time to see this as far as the educational system goes, but the educational system now, especially the higher educational system, they are on this track where they train people to become teachers. But the problem with that, and that's at least 100-year-old tradition, probably much longer than that. The problem with that approach in today's society is only a tiny fraction of the students are ever going to become teachers. So putting all of higher education on that track is disservicing the majority of the students.
Right.
We do need more VOTech or something like that, more practical education, but at the same time, maybe a little more emphasis on political history. That's something that's left out. I went through K through 12 without being required to pick up a constitution, if you can believe it.
So if you were, let's say you were in charge of the school system throughout the state of Florida, what changes would you do?
I would inject some basic American history, the history of the Constitution. I would make reading of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence mandatory, and at the same time, I wouldn't build a cult around the Constitution. I would still see it as a flexible document, and I would, students would be taught that you can change the way that your reality is. You can change the way your government is. But I think we lack this historical foundation, and that would not just be in the U.S., in any country in the world, maybe a sense of your history, world history. I'd emphasize that a lot more, but a lot more tech training. I think our tech training isn't keeping up. I would emphasize that very heavily now.
I remember when I was going to elementary school, we had to take history. And it was the history of Canada, the way the government ran in federal politics and in provincial politics. The British North America Act, and then you had the Constitution was brought back from the United Kingdom here into Canada, and how the different political leaders, all the way from Sir John A. Macdonald, who was the first Prime Minister after the Confederation of Canada in 1867, through to the present day, and at that time it was Pierre Elliott Trudeau. So mind you, we also had scripture as the first lesson in school. Everybody, you did the Bible, you did the singing of the hymns, you did a lot back then. And there was also health, personal hygiene, what to eat, what not to eat, the 4 basic food groups. But it seems that somewhere along the line, we changed from being so interested in helping a person prepare for their life as adults to preparing them for a future that 9 times out of 10 by the time they got out of school was no longer available.
That's right. You bring up an excellent point, and that is the shortcoming of a pure science and technology-based education. There are ways to make that education more general so it can keep up with emerging trends. But another problem with education now is they often teach how existing institutions are inherently bad. And I think that it's not that they emphasize it, it's that they overemphasize that. And so somebody can go to a 4-year college now, a liberal arts college, and when they come out, they feel that the existing order is inadequate. It has to be destroyed, and they don't teach the creative institution building. In the pre-college level, they train the students to take the test, which I think is the worst trend that currently exists in education right now. We're training kids just to take and pass the test, and I think that needs to be reversed immediately.
I agree. That makes no sense to me either. But what I really think needs to be done is that we have to, instead of doing criminal profiling, we should do something called educational profiling, where we take each specific child, establish his strong points or her strong points, establish their weak points. If a young child wants to become a graphic artist, put him into the appropriate courses. Don't make them take courses that are going to hinder their education. Put them into the areas that they will excel in. And for some reason, that's not being done.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I like that idea of an educational profile.
Yeah, why not? We do it with criminals, and it seems to work. So why can't we do it with children who are our future?
Oh, yeah.
We're stifling them. We're causing more problems than not. instead of putting kids on Prozac or Ritalin or whatever they put these poor kids on because they're so frustrated, they're not eating the right foods, they're not getting enough sleep, there's so much peer pressure. Put them in an environment that they can excel in. And I still go back to the basic premise that all kids in every school, including high school, should wear a uniform where everyone has a level playing field.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah. Speaking of education, I had a quick little tidbit that I wanted to share with the X-Zone Nation. One of the ways that they caught these Chinese hackers is the specific hackers, especially the person we were talking about last week, Ugly Gorilla, who was one of the big 5 PLA members involved in this. He put a UG in all of these logs. So whenever he hacked someone, he put a UG there, a signature there. So it kind of tied all of his work together. And if any user out there in the X-Zone Nation is interested in seeing their own computer logs, if they're on a Windows-based computer, Windows Vista 7, you can click the Start button, type in the word event in the search bar, select Event Viewer, and you can see all of your system logs. You can see every error, every request for security access, everything.
So once again, they just go to the button on the left-hand side at the bottom, click on that.
That's right. Click on that, type in the word event, and select Event Viewer. Now, in Windows 8 and 8.1, they made it slightly harder. From Windows Desktop mode, which you can get to by pressing the Windows key and D, the letter D, press Windows and the X key, and then Event Viewer should be one of the choices. Or you'll see Command Prompt, and you can type in EVT VWR and bring it up that way.
All right, Corey, stand by, old friend. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. X-Zone Nation, Corey K., great guy. His website, xzonetechzone.com. We'll both be back on the other side of this break. Whatever you do, don't go away. Hi, this is Rob McConnell, just letting you know that the X Chronicles newspaper is now available online at www.xzonebookclub.com. All past editions and current editions of the X Chronicles newspaper are available for 99 cents. That's www.xzonebookclub.com, and that's 99 cents US per edition. And don't forget, the X-Zone store is now open as well for all of your X-Zone Nation merchandise. www.thexzonestore.com. With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com.
That's www.whentechfails.com and www.matstein.com.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back, everyone. Corey K. is our guest, www.xzonetechzone.com. As always, Corey, great having you with us, my friend. And again, to you, your family, and to all the X-Zone Nation who is south of the 49th parallel. Happy Thanksgiving, belated happy Thanksgiving. And to you, Corey, my friend, belated happy birthday. ISIS. What do you think we should do about ISIS? Should we put boots on the ground? Should we just go after them full force, get it done and over with? Or should we try and let diplomacy rule?
You know, it is a tough call. As much as I hate to say this, and it goes against some of my past beliefs, I think we just have to go after them. They're too big a threat. They're against everything I stand for. I do not want a world dominated by anything that they stand for. So part of me thinks we have to just go after them, and we have to minimize their influence domestically for sure. One thing I noticed in recent weeks, ISIS members are putting up websites where they are trying to gain sympathy here in the U.S., and this is actually a very old tactic. The U.S. has had a terrible racial history compared to other countries, I feel, and way back in the Soviet Union days, the Soviets actually tried to gain converts to communism by promoting themselves as the anti-racist. And they made some good points, and they promoted some self-searching, but they were not a good cause. Their cause would not be the one that advances humanity, just like the ISIS cause is not the one that advances humanity. And they are going to gain converts by playing the race card, basically. And hopefully people will learn to see through it. The people who have become converts, maybe through a rehabilitation program, they can be trained to see that that is not the only way to view the world, or even a good way to view the world. So you can keep that faith, willingness, belief, desire to change the world in positive ways, but not go the way of the ISIS, just like you would not want to go the way of the Soviets back then.
You and I were talking during the news break, and I said that I wondered what part of the entire protest movement that we've seen that is just bordering on civil disobedience in many cases, how many of those were actually prodded on by ISIS? Because this would have been a perfect example for a perfect opportunity. The age grouping is just right for them.
Yeah, it's now I think they have an interest in promoting anything that could weaken us internally and internally divisive movement. That would play right into that. But I don't want to downplay the issue that there are real divisions that exist now in American society. We're more than ever aware of them, and hopefully we can settle them more peaceably, because people have just gotten mean.
They have. Hey, Corey, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. Always a great pleasure, my friend. Please give my best a chance, your better half, and George the cat.
I will.
And Exo Nation, if you'd like to ask Corey any questions pertaining to high tech, just go to www.xzonetechzone.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.